In a distant corner of the galaxy, aboard the exploration vessel SS Frontier, Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. His crew moved quietly around him, each person focused on their tasks. The ship was small compared to others in the fleet, but it had been built for long journeys into uncharted space. For weeks now, they had been traveling through sectors that no human eyes had ever seen, mapping stars and planets as part of their mission. It was routine work, boring, even but necessary if humanity wanted to expand its reach across the cosmos. Ryan sighed softly, leaning back against the railing. He glanced at the main screen, which displayed a swirling nebula in shades of purple and blue. It was beautiful, but beauty didn't pay the bills or keep the crew motivated. They were all tired, and supplies were running low. Nothing interesting. He wanted something, anything, to make this trip worthwhile then. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the ship was interrupted by a sharp beep. From the communications console, everyone froze. Lieutenant Mia Dawson, the ship's first officer, turned quickly to look at Ensign Alex Bennett, who was sitting at the comm station. "What is it?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Alex frowned, his fingers dancing over the controls. "I'm picking up a signal," he said slowly. "It's faint, but it's there." Ryan straightened up immediately. "A signal? From where?" "Deep space," Alex replied. "We're not sure yet, but it seems to be coming from somewhere near KX-4-7. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "Sir, it's repeating. Just one word. Help." The room fell silent. A distress call was rare in this part of the galaxy. Most planets out here were uninhabited, or at least unexplored. They didn't know what they were walking into. And the SS Frontier wasn't exactly equipped for combat. Mia stepped forward, breaking the silence. "We should investigate," she said firmly. Her tone left no room for argument. "If someone's out there and needs help, we can't just ignore them. That's not who we are." Ryan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. She was right, of course. Ignoring a distress call went against everything the crew stood for. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease growing in the pit of his stomach. Something about this felt off. "What do you think, Alex?" he asked, turning to the young ensign. Alex shrugged. "It's definitely artificial, not natural interference. And it's old, the signal's degraded, like it's been bouncing around for years, but it's still strong enough to pick up." "In KX-4-7, Ryan pressed. "What do we know about it?" Lisa Harper, the ship's biologist, spoke up from her station. "Not much," she admitted. "It's classified as a Class D planet hostile environment. High radiation levels, extreme temperatures. There's lava flows on the surface, and the atmosphere is toxic to humans. If anyone's alive down there, they're either very tough or very well protected." Ryan nodded slowly. None of this sounded promising, but Mia was right, they couldn't just leave. "All right," he said finally. "We'll check it out. Plot a course for KX-4-7. Let's see what we're dealing with." The crew sprang into action, adjusting the ship's trajectory to bring them closer to the mysterious planet. As they approached, strange readings began to appear on their instruments. Energy spikes flickered across the scanners, and gravitational anomalies made navigation tricky. Planets like KX-4-7 shouldn't have these kinds of disturbances. "Captain," Mia said suddenly, her voice tense. "Look at this." She pointed to the main screen, where a series of red blips had appeared. "Those aren't asteroids, they're structures. Artificial ones." Ryan leaned closer, squinting at the display. Metallic forms that didn't belong there naturally. Someone or something had built them. "Zoom in," he ordered. The image sharpened, revealing what looked like the remains of a massive spacecraft half buried in the rocky terrain. Its design was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. Sleek and angular, it seemed almost insect-like, with jagged edges and dark surfaces that absorbed light, rather than reflecting it. Whatever it wasn't human-made. "That's our signal source," Alex confirmed. "The beacon's coming from inside that ship." Ryan exchanged a glance with Mia. Both knew what this meant. They'd have to go down there, leaving the safety of the SS Frontier to explore an alien wreck on a hostile planet was risky, but they had no choice. "Mia, you're with me." Alex, Lisa, you two. We'll take the shuttle down and see what we're dealing with. Team gathered their equipment. Tension hung heavy in the air. No one spoke much. Everyone was lost in their own thoughts. Ryan tried to focus on the task ahead, but his mind kept drifting back to the signal. Who or what had sent it, and why? The word help was simple enough, but it carried so many questions. Was it a trap, a cry for salvation, or something else entirely? When the shuttle detached from the SS Frontier and descended toward KX-4-7, the view outside the windows was bleak. Jagged mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks glowing faintly orange from the heat of molten rivers below. The sky was a sickly shade of green, filled with swirling clouds of ash and smoke. Even through the shuttle's reinforced hull, the oppressive atmosphere of the planet pressed down on them. Finally, they touched down near the derelict ship. Ryan led the way out, followed closely by Mia, Alex, and Lisa. The ground beneath their boots was rough and uneven, littered with shards of black rock that crunched underfoot. The air smelled acrid, even through their suits' filters. Every step felt heavier than the last, as though the planet itself was trying to pull them down. Up close, the alien ship was even more imposing. Its surface was scarred and pitted, evidence of centuries of exposure to the harsh environment. Burn marks marred its hull in places, and entire sections had collapsed inward, leaving gaping holes that revealed twisted metal and broken machinery inside. Whatever had happened here, it hadn't ended well. "Stay alert, Ryan," murmured into his helmet mic. "We don't know what we're walking into." The team moved cautiously, weapons drawn despite the lack of visible threats. Inside the ship, the air was thick with dust and decay. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly in shades of blue and green. Consoles lined the corridors, most of them smashed or burned beyond recognition. Scorch marks suggested a violent struggle had taken place here. Then they found the bodies. Scattered throughout the wreckage were skeletal remains, their forms twisted and contorted in poses of agony. Some wore tattered remnants of uniforms, while others lay bare. Their skulls were elongated, their ribs unnaturally wide. Clearly, these weren't human or anything remotely close to it. Lisa knelt beside one of the skeletons, examining it closely. "They're not native to this planet," she said after a moment. "Their physiology suggests they evolved in a completely different environment." "Why would they crash here?" Mia wondered aloud. Before anyone could answer, Alex called out from further down the corridor. "Guys, I think I found something." The others hurried over to join him. He was standing in front of a partially intact console, its screen flickering weakly. After a few moments of fiddling with the controls, he managed to activate a playback function. Static crackled through the speakers at first, then gave way to a voice panicked, desperate, speaking in a language none of them recognized. But interspersed with the alien words was one phrase repeated over and over again: "Help us." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Whoever had sent the SOS hadn't survived long after sending it. And judging by the state of the ship, they hadn't gone down without a fight. As the recording ended, the team exchanged uneasy glances. They'd uncovered more questions than answers. Who were these aliens? What had attacked them? And most importantly, why had their distress call reached the SS Frontier now, centuries later? Before they could discuss it further, alarms began blaring back on the ship. Through their coms, they heard frantic voices, shouting warnings. An unknown object was approaching fast. Ryan cursed under his breath. "Let's move," he barked. "Back to the shuttle. Now." As they sprinted through the crumbling corridors of the alien ship, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled into something far bigger and far more dangerous than they'd bargained for. The team raced back to the shuttle, their boots pounding against the uneven ground as alarms continued to blare in their ears. Through the open comms channel, voices from the SS Frontier grew more frantic with each passing second.
"Captain."
"We've got a problem," shouted Ensign Alex Bennett, his voice trembling slightly. "Something's coming out of hyperspace, something big." Ryan Carter didn't respond immediately. His focus was on getting his crew safely back to the shuttle before whatever was approaching arrived. The alien ship loomed behind them, Its jagged silhouette silhouetted against the toxic green sky of KX-4-7. Despite the urgency, Ryan couldn't help but glance over his shoulder at the wreckage one last time. There was something ominous about it now, like it wasn't just a relic of some forgotten tragedy. It was a harbinger of worse things to come. Finally, they reached the shuttle and scrambled aboard. As soon as the hatch sealed shut, Ryan barked orders. "Get us airborne, Mia. Now." First Officer Mia Dawson nodded sharply and took the pilot's seat, her hands moving quickly over the controls. With a low hum, the shuttle lifted off the ground, rising above the desolate landscape of the planet below, through the windows. The team watched as an enormous shadow appeared at the edge of space. At first, it looked like a single ship, a massive, menacing vessel that dwarfed even the largest human cruisers. But then, more shadows emerged from behind it. Dozens, hundreds. An entire armada filled the void, their hulls glinting ominously in the dim light of distant stars. "What are those?" Lisa Harper whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the shuttle's engines. No one answered. They didn't need to. Everyone on board knew instinctively that these ships weren't friendly. Their sheer size alone was intimidating. But the way they moved with precision and purpose sent a clear message. This was a force to be reckoned with. Back aboard the SS Frontier, panic spread like wildfire among the remaining crew members. The bridge was alive with activity as everyone scrambled to prepare for the worst. Weapons systems were brought online, shields raised, and evasive maneuvers plotted. But deep down, everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The armada surrounding them was simply too powerful, sir, called out one of the junior officers, stationed at the sensors console. "They're hailing us." Ryan's heart sank. I'd hoped for a little more time to think, to come up with a plan. Found himself staring at the main view screen as it flickered to life. A single word appeared in bold letters across the display. "You summoned us?" "Summoned?" Ryan exchanged a confused glance with Mia. They hadn't summoned anyone or anything, yet here was this armada acting as though the SOS signal had been a deliberate call to action. It made no sense, lest could the beacon have triggered something. Ryan asked aloud, turning to Alex. The young ensign shrugged helplessly. "I don't know, Captain. If there were hidden codes embedded in the frequency, maybe. But I'd need more time to analyze it." Time was exactly what they didn't have. Without warning, several smaller ships detached from the armada and began descending toward KX-4-7. Their movements were swift and coordinated, leaving no doubt about their intentions. Whatever secrets lay within the alien wreck, if they wanted them manned, they weren't going to let anyone stand in their way. "We can't fight them head-on," Ryan said grimly. "Not with what we've got. We'll have to retreat and regroup." He turned to Mia. "Set a course away from the planet. Keep us at a safe distance while we figure out our next move." Mia nodded and relayed the order to the helmsman. Slowly, the SS Frontier began pulling back, putting as much space between itself and the armada as possible. For now, the mysterious ships seemed content to ignore them, focusing instead on deploying ground forces onto KX-4-7. Still, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that every move they made was being carefully observed. Once they were far enough away to feel marginally safer, Ryan gathered his senior officers in the briefing room. The mood was tense, bordering on despair. No one spoke for several moments, each person lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. "Whoever or whatever is commanding that armada," she began hesitantly. "They think we sent that SOS, and based on how quickly they responded, I'd say they take such signals very seriously." "But why?" Mia interjected. "Why would someone build a beacon designed to attract whatever those things are?" Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Maybe it wasn't designed to attract them specifically," he suggested. "Maybe it was supposed to warn others to keep people away. Or maybe—" He trailed off, considering the possibility maybe it malfunctioned, sent the wrong message entirely. Alex shook his head. "If that's true, then whoever built the alien ship screwed up royally. Because now we're stuck dealing with the consequences. And so is Earth," Lisa added quietly. "If we don't handle this right, we could be leading them straight to humanity." The weight of her words hung heavily in the air. None of them needed reminding of what was at stake. If the Armada decided to follow the SS Frontier back home, countless lives would be in danger. Humanity might not survive its first encounter with these beings. So what do we do? Mia asked finally. Her voice was steady, but there was a hint of desperation beneath the surface. We can't fight them, and we can't outrun them forever. What options do we have left? Ryan sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. We tried diplomacy, he said after a moment. Or sabotage. Maybe both. Lex Lasai wants you to working on disabling the beacon. If we can cut off the signal, maybe they'll lose interest and leave. In the meantime, Mia, I need you to come up with a plan to communicate with them. Find out who they are, why they're here, and whether there's any chance of reasoning with them. Everyone nodded in agreement, though none of them looked particularly hopeful. Time was running out, and the odds were stacked against them. But giving up wasn't an option, not when so much depended on their success. Over the next few hours, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare for what lay ahead. Alex and Lisa returned to the alien ship, determined to locate and disable the beacon before it could cause any more trouble. Meanwhile, Mia pored over every scrap of data they had collected, searching for clues about the Armada's origins and motives. Ryan stayed on the bridge, keeping a close eye on the situation unfolding below. As night fell, or rather, as the artificial lighting aboard the SS Frontier dimmed to simulate nighttime, the tension on board only grew thicker. Everyone knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, ones they might not be ready to face. Yet despite the fear and uncertainty, there was also a sense of determination. This crew had faced impossible odds before, and somehow they always managed to pull through. But as Ryan stared out at the endless sea of stars, he couldn't help wondering if their luck was about to run out. The universe was vast and unpredictable, full of wonders and horrors alike. And somewhere out there, lurking just beyond the edge of known space, was something ancient and unstoppable. Something that had answered their call, whatever happened. Next, one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning aboard the SS Frontier felt heavier than usual. The crew moved quietly through the corridors, their faces pale and drawn. Everyone knew what was at stake. The alien armada still loomed over KX-4-7, its ships casting long shadows across the planet's surface. For now, the mysterious fleet seemed content to focus on the planet below, but no one believed that would last forever. Sooner or later, they would turn their attention back to the human ship, panned when they did. The SS Frontier wouldn't stand a chance. Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, staring at the main view screen. It displayed a live feed of the activity happening. On KX-4-7, smaller scout ships from the Armada were landing near the derelict alien vessel. Disgorging teams of figures clad in dark, imposing armor. Their movements were methodical, almost mechanical. Whatever these beings were, they weren't wasting time. They had a mission, and they were determined to complete it. Captain Mia Dawson said softly, breaking the silence. She approached him cautiously, holding a datapad in her hands. I've reviewed all the data we've collected so far. There's not much to go on, but I think I might have an idea. Ryan turned to face her, his expression grim but curious. Let's hear it. Mia hesitated for a moment before continuing. Based on their behavior, I don't think they're here because they want to negotiate. They responded to the SOS like it was some kind of summons, a call to action. If that's true, then maybe they see us as part of whatever situation triggered the beacon in the first place. You mean they think we're responsible? Ryan asked, raising an eyebrow. Not necessarily, Mia replied. But they might believe we're connected somehow. Either way, we need to find a way to communicate with them to explain that we didn't send the signal intentionally. Maybe if we show them that we're not a threat, they'll leave us alone. Ryan frowned. And if they don't care, then we're out of options, Mia admitted. Her voice was calm, but there was a flicker of fear in her eyes. Which is why I think we should try diplomacy first. We can't fight them, and running won't solve anything. Our best shot is talking to them. Ryan nodded slowly. He didn't like it. Diplomacy required trust, and he didn't trust these strangers, but Mia was right. He couldn't afford to do nothing. All right, he said finally. We'll try your plan. I'm not sending you down there alone. You take a small team with you." Mia opened her mouth to protest, but Ryan cut her off. "No arguments. If things go south, I need to know you've got backup. Take Alex and 2 others. Arm yourselves lightly. We don't want to look aggressive, but be ready for anything." With the decision made, preparations began immediately. While Mia gathered her team, Ryan turned his attention to Alex Bennett and Lisa Harper, who were still working on disabling the beacon inside the alien wreck. Through the comms channel, Alex reported that progress was slow but steady. The beacon systems were unlike anything they'd ever encountered, requiring painstaking trial and error to decipher. Still, they were confident they could disable it if they had enough time. Time, however, was something they didn't have much of. Back on the bridge, sensors indicated that the Armada's ground forces were closing in on the derelict ship. I see. If Alex and Lisa didn't finish soon, they risked being caught in the crossfire. Worse, by midday, Mia and her team were ready, dressed in lightweight environmental suits and armed with non-lethal weapons. They boarded the shuttle and set course for the lead ship of the Armada. As they approached, the massive vessel loomed larger and larger, its dark hull blotting out the stars behind it. Up close, it was even more intimidating than it had appeared from a distance. Spikes jutted out from its surface like thorns, and glowing red lights pulsed rhythmically along its edges, giving it an almost organic appearance. "This thing looks alive," muttered one of the crew members nervously. Mia ignored the comment, focusing instead on maintaining a steady course. When they reached the designated docking bay, she activated the shuttle's comm system and transmitted a simple message. "We come in peace. We wish to speak with your leader." For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then, without warning, the shuttle was pulled into the ship by some kind of tractor beam. The transition was smooth, but unnerving, leaving Mia and her team feeling powerless as they drifted toward the open hangar doors. Once inside, the shuttle settled gently onto the deck. The airlock hissed open, and Mia stepped out cautiously, followed by her team. The interior of the ship was dimly lit, strange symbols etched into the walls and floors glowing faintly in shades of green and purple. The atmosphere was thick and oppressive, making it hard to breathe even through their suits' filters. A group of armored figures emerged from the shadows surrounding them. Each one stood nearly 7 feet tall, their bulky frames covered in jagged plates of metal. Their helmets obscured their faces completely, save for narrow slits where glowing eyes peered out. Weapons hung at their sides, though none were raised at least. Not yet. One of the figures stepped forward, clearly the leader of the group. Its armor was adorned with intricate patterns and markings, setting it apart from the others. Stopped a few feet away from Mia and tilted its head slightly as though studying her. "I am First Officer Mia Dawson of the SS Frontier," Mia said slowly, raising her hands to show she wasn't armed. "We mean you no harm. We came to talk." The figure didn't respond immediately. Instead, it extended a gauntlet hand, palm facing upward. A holographic display flickered to life above it, showing a series of images and symbols. One of them resembled the SOS signal they had intercepted earlier. "You understand this?" Mia asked, pointing to the symbol. "This is why you're here, isn't it? Because of the beacon?" The figure nodded once, its movements sharp and deliberate. Then it spoke not with words, but through a deep, guttural sound that reverberated inside their helmets. A translator device built into their suits struggled to make sense of it, producing fragmented phrases in broken English. "You summoned us," the voice growled. "You called. We came." Mia shook her head quickly. "No, you misunderstand. We didn't send the signal. We only found it. It came from the alien ship on the planet below." The figure paused, tilting its head again. For a moment, it seemed to consider her words. Then it gestured sharply, and another image appeared on the hologram map of the galaxy. With a single point highlighted near KX 4-7, "Our protocols demand conquest," the voice continued. "When the beacon activates, we claim the world. This is law." Mia exchanged a worried glance with her team. Conquest. That word sent chills down her spine. These beings weren't just explorers or warriors, they were conquerors. Driven by rules and instincts far beyond human understanding. We don't want your conquest, Mia said firmly. We're not from this planet. We're visitors, just like you. Please, let us leave. We'll deactivate the beacon, and you'll never hear from us again. The figure remained silent for a long moment, its glowing eyes fixed on her. It raised a hand, signaling for its soldiers to step back. Prove it, it rumbled. Deactivate the beacon. Then we will decide. Relief washed over Mia, though she knew they weren't out of danger yet. She nodded and turned to reboard. The shuttle, her mind racing. Disabling the beacon was their only hope now. If they succeeded, maybe, just maybe, they could avoid a war. But failure wasn't an option. Not when the fate of humanity hung in the balance. As the shuttle lifted off and headed back toward the alien wreck, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Armada hadn't attacked yet, but their patience wouldn't last forever. Every second counted. The shuttle carrying Mia Dawson and her team raced back toward the alien wreck on KX-4-7. The urgency in their movements was palpable, each second feeling like it stretched longer than the last. They knew that Alex Bennett and Lisa Harper were already inside the derelict ship, working to disable the beacon, but time was running out. The Armada's forces were closing in, and if the beacon wasn't neutralized soon, there would be no stopping what came next. As they landed near the wreckage, Mia stepped out first, her eyes scanning the horizon. The air was thick with ash and smoke, the ground trembling faintly beneath their boots. In the distance, she could see the scout ships of the Armada moving closer, their dark forms cutting through the toxic haze like predators stalking prey. She clenched her fists tightly, forcing herself to focus. There was no room for fear, not now. "Let's move," she ordered sharply, leading the way into the alien ship. Inside, the atmosphere was even more oppressive. The walls seemed to hum faintly, as though alive, and the symbols etched into the metal glowed brighter than before. It was as if the ship itself knew something was about to happen, something final. They found Alex and Lisa in one of the central chambers, hunched over a console surrounded by wires and glowing circuits. Both looked exhausted, sweat dripping down their faces despite the cool temperature inside their suits. "How's it going?" Mia asked, her voice tight with tension. Alex glanced up briefly, his expression grim. "We're close," he said, "but this thing is complicated. Whoever built it didn't want it to be easy to shut down." Lisa nodded, pointing to a cluster of blinking lights on the console. "This is the core, the part that's broadcasting. The signal. We've isolated it, but we need a few more minutes to disable it completely." Mia looked at the timer on her wrist. A few more minutes might as well have been an eternity. Outside, the sounds of movement grew louder, boots hitting, the ground weapons being readied. The Armada's forces were almost here. "Work faster," she urged. "We don't have much time." While Alex and Lisa focused on the beacon, Mia and her team took defensive positions near the entrance of the chamber. Through the broken windows, they could see shadowy figures approaching, their armored forms silhouetted against the fiery glow of the planet's molten rivers. Each step they took echoed ominously, sending shivers down everyone's spines. "They're coming," one of the crew members whispered, raising his weapon cautiously. "What do we do if they attack?" "We hold them off," Mia replied firmly, though her voice betrayed a hint of doubt. Their weapons were non-lethal, designed to incapacitate rather than kill. Against an enemy as advanced and ruthless as this, they wouldn't stand a chance in a direct fight. But retreat wasn't an option, not while Alex and Lisa were still. Trying to disable the beacon, suddenly a loud crash echoed through the chamber as one of the outer walls collapsed. Dust and debris filled the air, obscuring their vision momentarily. When it cleared, the armored figures had entered the room surrounding them. Their weapons were drawn, pointed directly at the humans. For a moment, everything froze. "Don't move!" Mia shouted, holding up her hands. "We're not your enemies." The leader of the group stepped forward, its helmet tilting slightly as it studied them, Its glowing eyes flickered between Mia and the console where Alex and Lisa were working. Then, without warning, it raised a hand, signaling for its soldiers to lower their weapons. "Finish," it growled, its voice distorted by the translator. Now, Mia stared at the figure, stunned. Had they actually listened? Or was this some kind of trick? Either way, she didn't have time to question it. "Keep working." She called out to Alex and Lisa, "Just a little longer." Alex nodded, his fingers flying across the controls. Sweat poured down his face as he worked to reroute the energy flow within the beacon's core. Beside him, Lisa monitored the readings, her eyes darting between the screen and the approaching soldiers. Neither dared to look away, knowing that failure meant disaster. Outside, the rest of the Armada's forces began converging on the site. Scout ships hovered overhead, their engines roaring deafeningly. The ground trembled as larger vehicles descended, kicking up clouds of dust and ash. It was clear that the entire operation was mobilizing, preparing for whatever came next. Finally, after what felt like hours, Alex let out a triumphant shout. "Got it!" he exclaimed, slamming his fist onto the console.
Ow.
The glowing symbols on the walls dimmed instantly, the hum of the ship fading into silence. The beacon was dead. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the armored figures began retreating, their movements deliberate and unhurried. The leader lingered for a moment longer, its glowing eyes fixed on Mia, honor satisfied. It rumbled before turning and walking away. Mia exhaled, sharply, her knees buckling slightly under the weight of relief. They had done it. They had disabled the beacon. But as she watched the Armada's forces withdraw, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not really. Back aboard the SS Frontier, Captain Ryan Carter watched the scene unfold from the bridge. The Armada's ships remained in orbit around KX 4-7 for several more hours before finally beginning to disperse. One by one, they vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only empty space and unanswered questions. "What happens now?" asked Lisa as she joined Ryan on the bridge. Her voice was quiet, tinged with exhaustion and unease. Ryan shook his head, his gaze fixed on the view screen. "I don't know," he admitted. "We stopped them for now. But they'll remember us if we ever cross paths again." He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. The implications hung heavy in the air. This encounter had been a wake-up call, a stark reminder of how fragile humanity's place in the universe truly was. Out there, beyond the stars, were forces far greater and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Forces that saw conquest as a way of life. Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage sustained during their mission. Supplies were low, morale was lower, and tensions ran high. Yet despite everything, there was a sense of accomplishment among them. They had faced an impossible situation and somehow come out alive. But Ryan couldn't stop thinking about the warning issued by the Armada's leader. "Should you summon us again, honor will demand destruction." Those words haunted him, echoing. In his mind, whenever he closed his eyes, he knew that humanity couldn't afford to make the same mistake twice. Whatever secrets lay hidden in the depths of space, they needed to be handled with Karor, not at all. As the SS Frontier began its long journey back to Earth, Ryan stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Somewhere out there, the Deathworlders continued their campaigns of conquest, driven by instincts as primal as they were terrifying. Humanity had escaped their wrath this time, but Ryan knew it wouldn't always be so lucky. He clenched his fists tightly, vowing silently to never underestimate the dangers lurking beyond the frontier. Humanity's survival depended on learning from its mistakes and preparing for whatever horrors lay ahead. The journey back to Earth aboard the SS Frontier was long and quiet, weighed down by the gravity of what the crew had experienced. The initial relief of surviving their encounter with the Deathworlders had quickly given way to a deep-seated unease. Everyone on board knew they had narrowly escaped something far beyond their understanding, and that it could happen again. Captain Ryan Carter spent most of his time on the bridge or in his quarters, poring over every scrap of data they had collected. During their mission, he replayed recordings of the alien beacon, studied images of the derelict ship, and reviewed the interactions with the Armada's leader. Each piece of information only raised more questions. Who were the Deathworlders? Why did they respond so violently to the SOS signal? Most importantly, how could humanity protect itself if they ever returned? Mia Dawson joined him often, bringing updates from the rest of the crew. Morale was low. The fear of what they had faced lingered like a shadow over the ship. Conversations were subdued, laughter rare. Even Alex Bennett and Lisa Harper, usually optimistic and curious about their discoveries, seemed shaken. They spent hours analyzing the technology they had salvaged from the alien wreck, but their findings offered little comfort. The beacon's design was ancient yet advanced, its mechanisms unlike anything humanity had ever created. Whoever had built it, whoever had triggered it, had set off a chain reaction that nearly ended in disaster. "We need to warn Earth," Mia said one evening as she sat across from Ryan in the briefing room. Her voice was calm but firm. "If we don't prepare for this, we're walking into another catastrophe." Ryan nodded slowly, rubbing his temples. "I know," he replied, "but how do we explain this to them? How do we tell them there's an unstoppable armada out there, ready to conquer anything tied to that beacon?" "Start with the truth," Mia suggested. "Show them the recordings, the data, everything we've gathered. Let the experts figure out what to do next. At least then we'll have done our part." Ryan sighed deeply. She was right, of course. Keeping this secret wasn't an option, not when the stakes were so high. But he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity wasn't ready for what they had uncovered. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also filled with dangers far greater than anyone had imagined. Facing those dangers unprepared would be a death sentence. When the SS Frontier finally arrived at Earth, the crew was greeted not with celebration, but with skepticism. Officials from the United Earth Council demanded immediate debriefings. There, expressions ranging from disbelief to outright dismissal. Some argued that the story sounded too fantastical to be true aliens arriving in response to a centuries-old distress call. An entire armada bent on conquest? It sounded like science fiction, not reality. Ryan stood before the council members, his posture stiff but resolute. Behind him, holographic projections displayed images of the alien ship, the beacon, and the Deathworlder fleet. "This isn't speculation," he said firmly. "We saw it with our own eyes. Spoke to them or tried to. If we don't take this seriously, we're putting everyone at risk." For hours, the debate raged on. Scientists questioned the validity of the data. Military leaders argued over potential defenses, and politicians worried about public panic. The meeting grew heated, voices rising as factions clashed over what to do next. Finally, a senior council member silenced the room with a single question. "What do you propose we do, Captain Carter?" Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "First, we secure the beacon. Whatever fragments remain must be studied, but under strict containment protocols. Second, we strengthen Earth's defenses. It's not just military forces, but early warning. Systems, communication networks, everything. Third," he paused, glancing around the table, "we start looking for allies. Humanity can't face something like this alone. There may be other species out there willing to help us." The council murmured among themselves, weighing the implications of his suggestions. While some remained unconvinced, others nodded thoughtfully. It was clear that no decision would be made immediately, but Ryan felt a small sense of accomplishment. At least they were listening. In the days that followed, the crew of the SS Frontier found themselves caught in a whirlwind of activity. News of their discovery leaked to the public, sparking widespread fear and fascination. Media outlets broadcast endless coverage, speculating about the nature of the Deathworlders and whether humanity was truly safe. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, some demanding increased funding for space exploration and defense, while others called for humanity to retreat entirely from the stars amid the chaos. Ryan and his team worked tirelessly to ensure their findings were taken seriously. Alex and Lisa collaborated with scientists to analyze the alien technology, uncovering details that hinted at the Deathworlder's origins. Their society was built on war, survival, and domination, a stark contrast to humanity's fragile attempts at peace and cooperation. Lisa theorized that their response to the beacon wasn't just aggression, it was instinct. To the Deathworlders, conquest wasn't merely a choice, it was a biological imperative. Meanwhile, Mia focused on diplomacy, reaching out to representatives of other interstellar civilizations humanity had encountered. Though many were reluctant to involve themselves in Earth's affairs, a few expressed cautious interest. One ambassador, representing a species known as the Valens, agreed to share intelligence about the Deathworlders in exchange for trade agreements. It was a small victory, but one that gave Ryan hope. Despite these efforts, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on Ryan. He couldn't stop thinking about the Armada's leader, the cold, calculating way it had spoken, the promise of destruction should humanity summon them again. Was it a threat, a warning, or simply a statement of fact? Whatever it was, Ryan knew they couldn't afford to ignore it. One night, unable to sleep, Ryan wandered to the observation deck of the orbital station where the crew was temporarily stationed. Through the large windows, Earth hung suspended. In the darkness, its blue-green surface glowing softly against the blackness of space. It looked peaceful, almost serene, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within humanity. "You look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders," a voice said behind him. Ryan turned to see Mia standing there, her arms crossed as she gazed out at the planet. "Maybe I do," he replied with a faint smile. "Feels like it sometimes." Mia stepped closer, leaning against the railing. "You did everything you could, Ryan. No one could have handled that situation better. Hell, most captains would have turned tail and run the second they saw that armada." "Doesn't change the fact that we barely made it out alive," Ryan countered. "And if we hadn't disabled that beacon, I don't even want to think about what might have happened." Mia nodded silently, her expression thoughtful. After a moment, she spoke again. "Do you think we'll see them again?" Ryan exhaled slowly, his gaze returning to Earth. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'd bet my life they're still out there. It's watching, waiting, and when they come back, we'll be ready," Ryan said firmly, though doubt lingered in his tone. "Or at least we'll try to be." They stood together in silence for a while, watching as Earth rotated slowly beneath them. Despite the uncertainty ahead, Ryan felt a flicker of determination. Humanity had always thrived on challenges, pushing forward even when the odds seemed insurmountable. This was no different. They had survived their first encounter with the Deathworlders, and they would survive whatever came next if they stayed vigilant as the lights of the station dimmed. Signaling the end of another long day, Ryan allowed himself a brief moment of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with danger and sacrifice, but as long as humanity refused to give up, there was a chance not just to survive, but to thrive. Out there, among the stars, lay both promise and peril. And Ryan knew that humanity's future depended on finding the courage to face both. Weeks turned into months after the SS Frontiers returned to Earth. The initial shock of their encounter with the Deathworlders had faded, replaced by a mix of determination and fear. Humanity was divided. Some saw the Armada as proof that space exploration was too dangerous, while others argued it was more important than ever to expand and prepare for future threats. Amid this tension, Captain Ryan Carter and his crew became symbols of both hope and caution. They had faced the unknown and lived to tell the tale. But their story served as a reminder of how fragile humanity's place in the universe truly was. The United Earth Council worked tirelessly to implement new measures aimed at protecting Earth from potential alien threats. Military forces were bolstered, early warning systems installed around key colonies, and research facilities dedicated to studying alien technology sprang up across the globe. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts continued, with Mia Dawson leading initiatives to forge alliances with other species. Progress was slow, but every small step felt like a victory against the looming specter of the Deathworlders. Alex, Bennett, and Lisa Harper remained deeply involved in analyzing the remnants of the alien beacon. What they discovered only deepened the mystery surrounding the Deathworlders. The beacon wasn't just a distress signal. It was a sophisticated device designed to act as a homing beacon for conquest. Its creators had likely intended it as a last resort, a way to summon help if their civilization fell under attack, but over time its purpose had shifted. By the time the SOS reached the SS frontier, it had become something far more sinister, a lure for predators. They built this thing hoping someone would save them, Alex said one evening, shaking his head as he stared at the fragmented components spread out before him. Instead, they summoned monsters. Lisa nodded grimly. And now, we've inherited their mistake. If anyone else triggers a beacon like this again... She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Ryan often joined them in the lab, listening intently as they pieced together clues about the Deathworlders' origins. From what they could gather, the Armada hailed from a planet so harsh and unforgiving that survival required constant warfare. Over millennia, their society evolved to glorify conflict, turning conquest into both art and necessity. To the Deathworlders, peace was weakness, and mercy was an alien concept. Understanding this didn't make them any less terrifying, but it gave Ryan some insight into why they acted the way they did. Despite these revelations, life aboard Earth struggled to return to normal. For many people, the idea of unstoppable alien warriors lurking beyond the stars was hard to shake. Parents warned their children about venturing too far into space. Politicians debated whether humanity should retreat entirely from interstellar exploration. Yet amidst the fear, there were also moments of resilience. Scientists pushed boundaries. Engineers designed better ships. And artists found inspiration in humanity's newfound understanding of its place in the cosmos. For Ryan, the aftermath of their mission was bittersweet. He was proud of what his crew had accomplished, but the weight of responsibility never left him. Every night, he lay awake wondering if they had done enough. Humanity was truly prepared for another encounter with the Deathworlders. The Armada's leader had issued a chilling warning: honor demanded destruction. Those words haunted Ryan, echoing in his mind whenever he closed his eyes. One evening, as he stood on the observation deck of an orbital station, staring out at the endless expanse of stars, Mia joined him. She carried 2 cups of coffee, handing one to him without a word. They sipped in silence, watching as Earth rotated slowly beneath them. Finally, Mia spoke. "You think about it a lot, don't you?" she asked softly. "What happens next?" Ryan nodded, setting his cup down on the railing. "Every day. Got lucky this time, but luck doesn't last forever. Sooner or later we'll have to face them again, and when that happens, we fight," Ryan said simply. "Not because we want to, but because we have to. Humanity's survival depends on it." Mia smiled faintly, though her expression was tinged with sadness. "You sound like you've already made up your mind." "I have," Ryan replied. "Can't run from this, Mia. Running won't solve anything. Hope we're ready when the time comes." As the months passed, humanity began to adapt. New technologies emerged, inspired by the alien wreck and the lessons learned from the Deathworlders. Ships were equipped with advanced shielding, weapon systems were upgraded, and training programs emphasized quick thinking and teamwork. Even colonies on distant planets took steps to fortify themselves. Knowing they might one day stand alone against invaders, diplomacy yielded mixed results. While some species agreed to share intelligence or resources, others refused to get involved, citing neutrality or distrust of human motives. Every alliance brought a glimmer of hope. The Valens, in particular, proved invaluable allies, offering insights into galactic politics and strategies for dealing with aggressive civilizations. Through their guidance, humanity began to carve out a niche for itself among the stars, not as conquerors, but as survivors. Yet despite these advances, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were merely delaying the inevitable. Weren't gone. They were still out there, somewhere beyond the frontier. And sooner or later, their paths would cross again. Years later, long after the SS Frontier's crew had disbanded, Ryan found himself back on Earth, walking through a park near his home. Children played on swings, laughing and shouting as their parents looked on. The air smelled fresh, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. It was a peaceful scene, one that reminded him of everything worth fighting for. A young boy approached him, holding a toy spaceship. "Are you Captain Carter?" the child asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Ryan knelt down, smiling gently. "I am. How'd you know?" "My dad told me about you," the boy said proudly. "He says you saved us from the bad aliens." I chuckled softly, ruffling the boy's hair. "Well, I didn't do it alone. A lot of brave people helped make that happen." The boy grinned, clutching his toy tighter. "Do you think the bad aliens will come back?" Ryan hesitated, searching for the right words. "Maybe," he admitted. "But if they do, we'll be ready. We've learned a lot since then, and we're stronger now than we were before." The boy nodded solemnly, as though absorbing the weight of Ryan's words. Then, with a final smile, he ran off to rejoin his friends, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts. Standing there, surrounded by laughter and sunlight, Ryan allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. Humanity had come so far in such a short time, yet the journey ahead was still uncertain. Out there, among the stars, lay countless dangers, but also opportunities. Opportunities to grow, to learn, to become something greater than they were. Before, as he gazed up at the sky, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. The Deathworlders were out there, yes, but so was humanity. And as long as they refused to give up, as long as they kept striving for a better future, there was always a chance. A chance to survive, a chance to thrive, a chance to prove that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and determination could light the way forward. The stars shimmered above him, vast and unknowable. Somewhere out there, the Deathworlders continued their campaigns of conquest, bound by instincts as primal as they were terrifying. But here, on Earth, humanity stood ready not just to face them, but to endure. Whatever came next, Ryan knew they would meet it head-on, because that was who they were. Survivors, explorers, dreamers, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough.